trickling in, but I think that's okay. It's really good to see some familiar names and faces here and some new ones as well. My name is Alex, and I am on the nRhythm team. I play roles as a director of programs as well as operations. And I'm really thrilled to, see you all here today. Lots of folks from all over Dublin, New Zealand, some early birds in Australia. I guess it's pretty early in New Zealand too, Asheville. So great to be with you all here today. I'm also joined, we'll be hearing from my fellow coworkers, Natalie and Trey as well today. So very much looking forward to that. And hi, Patrick and Rosemary. If you haven't already, please feel free to drop in the chat your name, location. Also feel free to include if you're here representing an organization or you're a coach or consultant, facilitator, educator, you're welcome to include a little bit about that as well. So welcome to our webinar about the new With Life professional program. Today is really all about giving you the opportunity to discover this new program and giving you some insights on how we're thinking about resourcing organizations, whether you're here as a consultant, a coach, facilitator, educator. We're hopeful that you'll take away something today that you could begin to integrate into your own practice. So a little bit about the flow. We are going to share a little bit about With Life, what it is. Trey is going to share some insights on elevating your practice and why best practices are not enough. We'll hear from Natalie about the program itself. I'll also give us a little bit of a grounding in the With Life approach, and then we'll have lots of time for Q&A towards the end of our session today. So please ask you to hold your questions till the end, or of course, if you'd like to, if it's really burning, you're welcome to drop it in the chat and one of us will do our best to respond as we present. Great. So what is With Life? With Life is an approach to organizing that holds the patterns of living systems at its foundation. So whether you're organizing in business, policy, government, or community work, the With Life approach is really all about empowering us to create healthy, resilient organizations. And this approach was founded by nRhythm and the Capital Institute. And it is brought to life and implemented in two ways. The first being a global platform for capacity building, and the second being through a landscape of local ecosystems for demonstration. And so really in the global platform for capacity building, that's where you'll find a lot of our, online programs, courses. We consider the With Life professional program to be in that vein, but we also work, and Trey will share more about this in his piece, but we do work in local ecosystems around the world in organizations through operating partnerships or consulting. So we both teach as well as demonstrate the With Life approach through our work. A little bit more in depth about that. Through our global platform, we've had the opportunity to educate and build the capacity of over 2,400 people in 81 countries. And here we go. Through our global platform of landscape and local ecosystems, we've worked with over 90 clients from 16 countries, many of which are real global organizations operating all over the world beyond that. So global networks kind of thing. And then, of course, through our operating partnerships, currently 4 partners in 4 ecosystems in about 7 locations around the world. And that's really where we come alongside and work within an organization to create regenerative transformation in a real operational way. And to give you a little bit of, I'm not going to speak to all the details of this slide. It could be a little bit overwhelming, but wanted to show that there is a lot that we are doing through the With Life Global Capacity Building Platform. All of these boxes represent areas where you can build your capacity. And so whether you're organizing with life in your organization, we have courses and programs to support that. Whether you're wanting to bring the With Life approach to life and economics, we partner with the Capital Institute to bring that to life in all kinds of different online courses and programs. We offer tools such as the organizational health assessment, community, because we really believe that this work cannot be done outside of community. So we have the free With Life community. And then, of course, why we're all here today is the programs that we offer. And part of our programs are really rooted in the the belief that we need to enable individual transformation, organizational transformation, as well as client transformation. And so that is why we have founded 3 core kind of programs, one being the fellowship for individual change makers within organizations, 2 being the cultivator, which is about organizational transformation, and then 3 being why we're all here today, the professional program, which is really about building the capacity of professionals, whether you're a coach, you're an educator, you're a facilitator, and you're working in client relationships. We are launching this program to be able to support you to bring this approach to life, and we'll share more about that today. And we'll come back to this as well later, but everything in the light green is things you'd have access to as a part of the professional program. All right, so that's just a brief overview. I know some of you are kind of new to With Life, so we wanted to ground us in that, in what we're all about. And with that, I will hand it over to Tre to lead us through this next part.
Yeah,
Tre,
thank you, Alex.
Introduce yourself too, although I'm sure many know you.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Welcome, everyone. And most of what I'll say today may reinforce ideas that you already have. But in reality, we feel like the way for us to collectively address polycrisis that our world is in is to support building and influencing the capacity across the world. And we in Rhythm will play a role in organizations, in systems, as a way to be able to influence those designs and really support real change. But we recognize that far more will be done outside of our direct influence than in and with our direct influence. And so really the essence of the professional program is to support those professionals who will have that influence in ways that we could help to elevate the With Life approach as a means to support that work. And what we really deeply mean with the With Life approach is, as Alex has already shared, is that we believe life at the center of a design for how we design, manage, and monitor organizations and systems will bring a very different outcome than what we are all experiencing individually and collectively today. And the idea that our current practice is working is something that we may have been told or we've experienced to some extent in a very limited way. And so what we recognize is our current practices are actually enough of being able to support the change that we all really need to happen in our communities and organizations and in our countries or economies around the world. And in particular, when we say why best practices aren't enough, typically it's consultants, business people, coaches. We've lived and breathed off of best practices as a means to be able to say, well, if this worked here, it should work there. And in living systems, we really take approaches of recognizing each living system is unique. And it's not that we can't learn from different living systems as a way to inform that in unique ways in organizations or in the ecosystems that we may serve. We just recognize at the core, it's understanding the health of those systems, not necessarily best practices. And it may be an inroad, it may be a conversation, it may be a way for us to support creating and supporting the change of the conditions in those organizations or systems. But in reality, actually, I think best practices moves us in our head space, in our mindset, from believing there is one way to do something, prescriptions, to recognizing based on context, there may be many different ways. And in understanding that, we would then encourage, support, develop capacity in those areas very differently. So our commitment is to help you and others to help build your own development as a way to be able to deliver on this kind of work around the world. And in actuality, it is you and others that help to inform the design of With Life and how we've continued to evolve this work from the day I founded the organization back in Rhythm and what our approach was back in about 2018. And so it's been phenomenal to learn, to work, and to be a part of this with many other people. So Alex, feel free to move to the next slide. So one of the things that we recognize as a part of this desire to build around best practice and the idea of prescription is that we tend, based upon this mechanistic, very controlling based paradigm, like to design things with a particular outcome in mind that doesn't allow for health and emergence. And even Stanley McChrystal, who led the war effort in Afghanistan for the United States, said it this way: the temptation to lead as a chess master, controlling each move of the organization, must give way to an approach as a gardener, enabling rather than directing. And nRhythm finds itself and its team playing that kind of role all the time, where that we are supporting the conditions that are emerging and are developing in an organization, and that's what we want to do with professionals. We get asked and called into conversations all the time across the world, and the capacity that is needed to support the organizations that want facilitators, coaches, and professionals to come alongside them. We felt like we have a better chance to really support the emerging potential that's showing up by supporting a whole community of professionals that can actually do this work. And actually that really excites us. And as I said earlier, it allows us to create a whole posture around how we support and enable those conditions so that incredible things emerge from that. As some of you may know, I have a deep background as an entrepreneur, as an executive in many different tech companies, and actually spent over a decade of my life and continue to spend in the agriculture space. And we recognize to regenerate, to create more life in systems, our emphasis should be upon the health of the system, not just the productivity of that system. And actually, in reality, we want the productivity that happens in the system to come from the health in the system, not at the expense of the health of the system. And it's the essence of all of that that we believe sets the stage for what would be incredible conversations that would support the development of organizations around the world. And that development, we think, is incredibly powerful and unique. So when you think about traditional consulting versus the with life approach, there's a couple of things that we are looking at. One is traditional consulting relies on those rigid best practices. It's not context specific. It focuses on quick fixes, short-term results, tends to neglect, or I say neglects root causes. It sees root causes in a very linear way. Like, oh, this is the one thing that's causing it. In reality, there are a lot of different things that are influencing what's happening in an organization or any system. It's also very top heavy and top down in terms of how decision making is made. And it leaves a lot of emphasis upon implementation around, strong individuals and roles versus a really systemic approach. And that means there is a lot of people doing things alone in islands versus collectively. Versus the with life approach really reimagines that entire design. And when I say reimagines, it totally does. It's not that nRhythm and the with life approach is completely unique. We've pulled from all kinds of different traditions as a way to be able to inform this design, but we see life at the center of it. And similar to like human-centered design, the with life approach is really hoping that we, build capacity to bring that forward. It also addresses root causes across multiple different influences, emphasizes, what collaboration and cooperation and co-creation looks like with all stakeholders. And we see organizations as ecosystems, not just islands of themselves. The flexibility, innovation needed to adapt to all of the incredible changes we have. And we actually prioritize what does health and resilience look like, both individually and organizationally as a part of that process and design. that really is a little insight into the contrast between what would be traditional education consulting and approaches versus what we are really encouraging and supporting in this process. And so, as a part of that, I just want to say that our desire is to create a community of professionals that would allow us to learn from one another, to continue to evolve and adapt what we see is working in these organizations, and also continue to support the demand that is needed in organizations who are looking to adopt and to embrace this kind of approach. So that really captures the essence of what that looks like. And I'll just kind of pause with that. Alex.
Awesome. Thank you, Trey. Yeah, as Trey said, really our intention is to cultivate a community of professionals who are rooted in the with life approach and support the growth of this work and bringing it to organizations around the world, recognizing that there's unique context everywhere, whether it's the industry that you're working in or the region that you're working in, and we can't do it alone. So in this next part, we wanted to ground us a little bit more in the foundations of the with life approach. We have a whole course on this, but I'll just give a really brief overview because this is really what the kind of the foundational underpinning of the entire program is. And it will be essential that anyone who chooses to join the program will be really wanting to align with this and do the hard work of aligning their own personal practice and professional practice with what this is all about. And it's definitely a journey. I think all of us at nRhythm recognize that, and we are still working it ourselves, which is why we're really looking forward to growing a community of others who are doing this professionally. So a little bit more about it. We are recognizing that, right, as Trey has said and others have said, the dominant model for organizations today is really the machine. If you just do a quick Google search, you can find images from popular magazines for business like Inc. magazine saying 5 ways to run your company like a well-oiled machine, or different departments as cogs in the machine. And even entire states, like the state of Georgia in the United States, run like machines, or cross-sector collaboratives as well. So it's really a dominant model of how we think about running organizations, and it shows up in our language, which is a really important indicator of how we're thinking about things, of our mindset behind things. So we often find ourselves saying, is this organization working like a well-oiled machine? Or I don't have bandwidth for that. We've got to dial that in, move the needle. Maybe you can think of some others that you could drop in the chat. And so you can start to imagine how this machine metaphor has really permeated all aspects of our lives, not just at work, but actually at home. We talk about ourselves in the very same way. We need to hit the reset button. And it really emphasizes this focus on productivity, efficiency, and driving outcomes. But at what expense? What are the consequences of leading organizations as machines? It's actually really continued to contribute to many of the complex problems that we face today. So when our primary focus is on productivity, efficiency, and predictable outcomes, this actually comes at the expense of health and well-being. And paradoxically, disregarding health and well-being for these things, for productivity, efficiency, and predictable outcomes, can actually negatively impact productivity, efficiency, and predictable outcomes. And so we start to view people as parts of that machine, right? But the reality is we're not machines. And you can see this in global employee engagement stats, where only 23% of people are thriving at work. The remaining 77% are either quiet quitting, not engaged, or loud quitting, actively disengaged. And that's estimated to cost the global economy $8.8 trillion in lost productivity every year, or 9% of global GDP. Can you imagine if you bought a car that was only operating at 23% efficiency? Would you ever buy that car? No, no one would do that. So it's sometimes really hard to believe that this is actually the state of organizations today, right? And from a planetary perspective, we believe and posit that the way that we've designed and managed our organizations is responsible for planetary decline. This is just one index that we look at, the Living Planet Index, that indicates a 58% in decline in global biodiversity between 1970 and 2012 alone. From an equality perspective, when there's billionaires that are worth more than the GDP of entire countries, something's not working with our design. And of course, from an equity perspective, we're seeing significant inequity across the system. In particular, race is the greatest predictor of how well you'll have access to education, jobs, housing, equitable development, and whatnot. But one of the things we think is really important to recognize, and we go into this in a lot more depth in our Fundamentals of Regenerative Organizations course and in many of our other courses, is that this mechanistic metaphor and this way of viewing the world, this dominance of the mechanistic paradigm, is in real deep contrast to many philosophical wisdom and spiritual traditions around the world. This was not always the dominant paradigm. There are many other communities around the world, from Buddhism to Hinduism to paganism, and of course, indigenous communities around the world who really did not view the world this way and continue to not view the world this way. And so we acknowledge that this work, and that we've had the pleasure of working with many of these communities over the years and learning alongside them. And so we recognize that we need a new design. So the good news is that even though these are all very depressing stats, we see this as a design issue. And so this is not inherently our future. We don't have to continue to design to the mechanistic metaphor. We can choose to design to a new metaphor. And so here With Life and nRhythm, we look to life as a model because living systems demonstrate unique qualities of resilience, dynamic adaptation, and emergent outcomes. And a couple of things and frameworks I wanted to share that we'll go into in a lot more depth in the professional program is really about kind of contrasting. One of the first ones I'll share is really about contrasting what we mean by living systems design versus a machine design. And so we'll take a look at these two different approaches and compare and contrast them a little bit. So when we take a machine design, ultimately we're engineering a set of best practices. Tre spoke a little bit about that. What works here is going to work over there. We're just going to implement the same thing in different contexts completely, right? And so we implement the set of best practices, which reinforces prescriptive structures, the same way of doing things in different environments. And that ultimately the health of that machine is going to degenerate over time, right? And this is a great process if you're building a machine like a car or a train. Like, you really want to have a set of best practices to put together. I'm going to say a toy train because I don't know if any of us on this call could put together a real train. But if you get something in the mail or a set of IKEA furniture, I'm going to want this process in place. Ideally, it doesn't degenerate too fast. Depends on how much the kids get their hands on it, probably. But this is great in that context, right? But when we're talking about living systems and we're taking a living systems design, that informs a set of patterns which facilitate the use of flexible frameworks that adapt to the context and to the environment, to the organization. What works over here might not work over here. Let's adapt it. Let's be flexible. And that ultimately the health of living systems regenerates over time, right? In the machine approach, oops, my screen's a little slow. And in the machine approach, ultimately machines require more energy and more external inputs, whereas living systems over time require less energy and they have the ability to self-maintain. And so it's not that one approach is necessarily good or bad. It's all about the context in which we are using these approaches, right? Again, if you want to build a car or a set of IKEA furniture, best practices all day long. Please don't send me some patterns that I need to use to put together that furniture. But when we manage our organizations as machines, that's really degenerating the health of those organizations over time. We really want to look to this living systems approach to be able to manage, design, monitor our organization so that we get very different outcomes than the ones that we're seeing we just talked about from a planetary equity and employee engagement standpoint. But we do recognize this requires really substantial shifts in perspectives and operations. And that's really what we're all about, supporting the shift in our mindsets, supporting the shift in our operations so that we can create the real transformation that we want to create in the world. So we talk a lot about this in our courses through the professional program. And I won't go into the details too much, but we also, this is our living systems framework for organization. So when we talk about flexible frameworks, this is what we reference throughout the program, what we grow your capacity to be able to really lean into and operate with your clients with and bring to the world. And it's all about creating conditions for underlying health. And we go into this in a whole lot more detail in the program. So with that, you're probably also eager to hear more about the program itself. So we're going to switch gears, and I'll put a coin in the mechanistic swear jar. We have one of those metaphorically on our team. Let's switch gears now. Over to you, Natalie. Um,
Thanks,
yeah.
Alex. Okay, so I'm just going to, hi, I'm Natalie. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a high-level overview about the program. Here is a testimonial about the program that you are welcome to read. So we're, like Trey and Alex said, we're really interested in developing a community of professionals. And so this program is designed to help elevate your practice as a professional using a living systems approach so that you can help others build healthy, resilient organizations, so that you can help others navigate complexity and change. We are living in a state of infinite complexity and rapid paced change. So this is a global community, professional consultants. nRhythm has over 50 years of combined experience serving 90 clients, educating more than 2,400 people in 81 countries across the world. So the With Life professional program is a global program. It's a global membership community. You will have access to a specific and dedicated community for professionals, along with our larger With Life community. And you'll have access to all the courses and programs and resources and tools and support from our team that Alex touched on at the beginning of this program. And you can think of it as a home for change makers, a home for people who are dedicated to creating transformation in organizations, in social systems, and really leaning into this living systems based regenerative approach. So it's for educators, coaches, and facilitators. And I'll go into that in just a little bit more about why might this be the right program for you. So what is the purpose of this program? We follow our framework actually internally in nRhythm as we design our programs, courses, offerings, as we work with clients, as we design our own internal operations. So part of the With Life framework is really getting clear on what your purpose is. And so we developed a purpose for this program to elevate your professional practice with a living systems approach to building healthy, resilient organizations that excel in navigating complexity and change alongside a community of trained professional consultants, educators, coaches, and facilitators dedicated to supporting regenerative leaders, teams, and communities. So what will you get in the program? What does it consist of? So we've talked a lot about the community of professionals. This is 1 year access to the professional community, which is a global community who are putting this approach into practice. You will get mentorship from our team. So that's all of us working together to support you, to answer your questions, facilitating sessions, and really working to guide you through learning the approach and learning how to apply the approach in really flexible ways that honor the unique context of each organization or individual that you're working with. You will get access to all kinds of courses and training materials. So it's 1 year of access to all of nRhythm and Capital Institute's programs, courses, and training materials covering regenerative organizational design, management and leadership, regenerative economics, regenerative approaches to finance, investment, money and banking. In addition to that, there are dedicated specific trainings around how do you take all of that and then put it into practice as a professional. So there's a big difference between sort of learning, adopting, and using this approach, and then learning how to teach and facilitate and create capacity for others to use this approach. And so there are dedicated trainings in this program specifically for that. There's also credibility, so you'll get unique recognition for yourself and your practice by being able to add the With Life approach to your toolbox by joining the community, the With Life professional community. You'll be able to demonstrate your knowledge. There's a demo component at the end of the program, and you'll be able to share your knowledge with others in the community and externally. You'll be able to demonstrate your experience and your skills and really start to learn how to embrace and bring forward this unique approach. And I think it's really important to call out here something that Tre mentioned earlier, which is just this concept that we are all always learning, we are all always growing and adapting and shifting this approach based on all of our learnings across unique and connected contexts all over the world. And so as you're working with the With Life approach, as you're working with clients as a professional, we're also learning from you. And I think that's really important to keep in mind because none of this is static. It's always all evolving. And then finally, there's an opportunity with the With Life Professional program to become a service partner. So Alex mentioned we have a couple of tools that we use with our clients. One is an organizational health assessment. Another one that we use a lot with clients is our actual design lab program where teams have an opportunity to, or individuals and teams have opportunities to pick a certain challenge or project or aspect of their organization that they're working on and sort of shift it from a mechanistic design into a living systems-based design. And you'll have opportunities as a professional to work with us to bring those tools to your clients as well as a service partner. So this program might be for you if you are a consultant, an educator, a coach, or a facilitator. If you want to join a community of professionals who are bringing a life-centered approach to their practice to regenerate people, teams, organizations, communities, etc. Maybe you just started a consulting practice and you want to strengthen your credibility. Maybe you are a professional consultant or educator and you want to bring a new set of tools or frameworks into your work. Maybe you are feeling frustration that some of the tools that are in your box just aren't working as well as you want them to, or aren't how you're not seeing the results that you want to see, or you are just looking to expand your toolkit. All of these different, scenarios. Maybe you're getting a lot of great results in the short term. Maybe you're getting some behavior changes or some outcomes are improving in your client work, but you're not seeing that deep, lasting, transformative change. Or maybe you're just really interested in helping to bring a more life-centered regenerative paradigm to whatever context in the world you're involved with. So those would all be reasons why you might be interested in joining this program. Alex, I think you're up.
All right. I'm trying to see if there's anything on this slide that maybe we didn't cover or that you haven't covered already, but I'm thinking, yeah, just maybe some highlights here in terms of additional program overview. And all of this is available on our website. There's a program guide that I really encourage you to download. But again, kind of the core components of the program, really capacity building to facilitate the With Life approach, right? You'll not only learn through all the courses and programs, but there is additional trainings to be able to support you to facilitate, to lead this approach in your client or your professional engagements. And that comes with things like specialized tools, PDFs, resources, training sessions. And we'll also dive through practical application, real world case studies with our team of consultants and challenges we've faced. And the community aspect is something that, again, has come up so much on this call and is really important to us. But our intention is to create a vibrant community of professionals, and you'll have access to that for 1 year and to create the conditions for us to all learn and grow alongside one another. And then lastly, Natalie mentioned a little bit about the opportunity to demonstrate your skills. Part of this program is a demonstration project where you'll have the ability to showcase your skills in a way that's meaningful to you. That could be hosting a webinar, recording a client engagement, and really get mentorship and feedback from your mentors and peers. A couple of important details that we wanted to share. This program has open enrollment and rolling admissions, so you can join at any time. And you can complete it in as little as 3 months, or you can take up to 12 months. Totally depends on your capacity and how quickly you want to move through things. There are some program fees associated, a slight incentive if you pay in one payment, or we do offer a flexible payment plan if that suits your context better. Some key dates that are coming up. We really do feel like it's a great time to join. We have our design lab starting on the 4th of February. It's a great place to get started to build your capacity to lead this approach. And our first specific professional program training sessions start on February 21st, and those are run monthly alongside our other courses. We are hoping to fill about 10 spots in our upcoming live training, or we have 10 additional spots in our upcoming training. And so would love to invite you all to, if you're interested in this, now's a great time to join us. And a little bit about the process. So again, you can start anytime with rolling admissions. You can enroll and get your 12-month access and then go through the programming. So go through the education, the training, go through the core programming elements in as few as 3 months with a 15-hour per month commitment, or spread it out over a year. And you get unlimited access to everything all year. So you can do programs as many times as you like, as well as community access. And that third step is really to demo your work, and you'll be able to complete a self-assessment, get a certificate of completion, and then we really encourage continued engagement in that community. This is something that we hope to cultivate and grow over time, and continue to learn alongside one another. So yeah, you can learn more at www.withlife.net/professional program. I'll drop a link in the chat in the moment. And yeah, we have about, I think, 20 minutes left. I'll stop my screen share and we can facilitate some Q&A. If anyone has any questions for us, we are here to answer them. Would love to hear your thoughts, reflections, or any questions that you have on whether this is about the program. So I'll pause and feel free to raise your hand, or if you'd prefer, you're welcome to drop a question in the chat. And we have Glenna, I saw your hand. You want to start?
Yes, please. Thank you. Tre, you mentioned very specifically human-centered design, and I'm just curious about the intentionality of design thinking, and is that integrated into the program?
Yeah, so great question, Glenn. This is a design thinking at the basis of this work is design thinking, but from a living system perspective. There's a lot of design thinking that tends to still be rooted in a lot of mechanistic design. And so we're shifting that. I use the analogy of human-centered design is we see this as an equivalent of what does it look like to put life at the center, not just humans, but all of life and ecosystems as a way to consider designs in our organization, in the roles that we play in organizations and the communities that we're a part of, and the industries that we all as consultants and educators have the opportunity to influence. So it takes the best of design thinking, but continues to refine that with this living systems lens. And really builds off of that in ways to help you and others to put that to work. Does that answer your question, Glenn?
Very, very great. Thank you. And I love that. It's a process that I've been using for a number of years, and there are limitations. The second question I have is in terms of renewal. So you have the first year. And then I'm curious, like access to, for instance, the assessment, the resources, the community. What does that look like in subsequent years?
Great question, Glenna. Natalie, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. So the way you can sort of think about it is that in that first year, you really want to engage with as much of the content and programs as you possibly can, taking all the professional training so that you get the opportunity to really develop a strong, deep understanding, and then to demo and showcase your work, right? At that point, we really want to hold community space to continue to grow. And as you move into that renewal, like what it would look like in a year, you would still have access to all of those things. You could still take you could still take the courses and programs and have lifetime access to those resources, or have that access to those resources. And it's also less about learning it for the first time and then being able to demonstrate that you learned it, and much more about what you're actively learning through your practice as part of the community. So it's a considerably lower fee for the subsequent years, in terms of the cost to you. But the key difference is, you're still a part of all of it and you still have access to it, but it's very different, um, to sort of be an active practitioner of this approach and to be, in community around that process in your subsequent years as you're learning, than it is to sort of be learning it all up in the first year.
Thank you.
Alex, would you add anything to that, or does that?
Oh, I think that's great.
Okay.
I don't know if Trey.
Yeah, the only thing I would also add is you can imagine, and I don't want to overstate this, but I also don't want to lose the opportunity to communicate this. With the amount of capacity building we're doing as an organization across multiple countries, we get lots and lots of requests of things that we really cannot deliver on. It just isn't within our scope and our priorities to be able to do all the work that comes our direction. So somewhere in this process, it is and will be the relationships we build in this professional program and we mentioned this, to really identify people who really are super aligned with us and want to be service providers with us as a part of that. And that will impact what a renewal looks like year after year, because it gets more complex than just a part of a program. So I just want to stress that this is the beginning of what we believe to be a really core capacity building program and structure for us to support organizations that we could never do with our small team. So we need a larger team, and that team would be the extension of leaning on you as a part of that in all your different contexts, where you have those relationships, you have those influences, and we are behind the scenes supporting you in that work. And we're calling it the With Life approach and putting emphasis upon that because it is unique and different. And it doesn't mean you won't bring something unique and different to that in all of your practices. But the reality is, we believe we need to highlight that life needs to be at the center of management design all the time. And I think it would shift what we're experiencing in our economies, in our societies, in our organizations. So I just want to stress and make sure that's not lost in this process.
Thank you so much. I'll just say I love the big, bold vision. I love the language, and just what's possible with it. So thank you all for your hard work.
Thank you, Glenna. I really appreciate that. It's the culmination of many years of this percolating as community members have been like, well, how do we work with you all? How do we put this into practice? And we're finally like, okay, we need to put a structure around this. And as Trey, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Trey. This is early stages, and this will evolve and grow as we learn what works with you all. And there will be, I really believe there will be more opportunities than any one of us knows what to do with as this approach grows. I'm sure you've all noticed lots of organizations are beginning to recognize that, 23% engagement rates, like this is just not working. We need a different approach. I really feel like this living systems approach is transformative, and it's beginning to get I don't know how to put it. It's beginning to be recognized, I think, more widely. And so I think it's a really great time to grow this community and learn alongside one another. So does anyone else have any questions or comments? Seeing some things in the chat. Any clarifying questions? Anything unclear? Any curiosities?
I have a question, Alex.
Yeah.
When you guys talk about having access to all of the tools, right, that you guys have built, does that mean that we would be able to use those with our clients?
Natalie, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so in when you're sort of in, I guess we can think of it when you're in that first year in that learning phase, you'll be learning about those tools and how to use them and how to put them to work. And yes, it does mean that you would have the opportunity to use those tools with your clients. So you could, for example, as a professional, bring a team that you're working with through the design lab and facilitate their experience through our design lab. You might go through design lab to, for example, design how you might design some aspect of your professional practice, but then you could also bring clients through the design lab to work through something. Maybe it's operational, maybe they want to design roles or structures or governance or compensation or whatever it is. You'll also have access to our organizational health assessment, and you can use that tool as well with your clients. So yeah, it's a huge opportunity in that way.
Okay, and then that's included in the fee for
Mhm.
being part of the community.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, and one thing to just add on the tools, what we have found when we've done this kind of informally or relationally, one person at a time, is that it just enhances the ability for you to be able to use something that a community has developed as a way to be able to support that organization's development, and then have the resources. And I'll use the OHA as an example. It's one of the only tools that we know of in what it's currently doing that really tries to assess what the health of an organization is. And we don't see a need for everybody, every consultant, every educator to develop their own tool. We know that this could be a tool everybody could use, and use feedback we're getting from people using the tool to continue to improve that tool. And then it just allows you guys to continue to build relationships with your clients, with your communities, with the work that you're doing, and not have to feel like I've got to invest resources and time in building something that we could share. And that's really where this is coming from. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think I could imagine in this first year, especially, we'll be learning a lot about what our community of professionals needs and really keeping a pulse on that, monitoring that, wanting feedback from you all on, okay, what more could we develop? And we're working really closely with our client team, our client and operating partners team, which Tre is one of the co-leads of, to be like, okay, what are we learning in our operational and client relationships that we can really bring into our professional community to be able to support even more, support you all even more as you're bringing this to work in client relationships. So we're really viewing this internally too as a bit of a learning year for this program, and getting feedback from everyone who's going through it to be able to be responsive to what's needed, and what do we need to develop to be able to make this even more impactful.
Well, one other thing I want to mention, and I'll mention this because I know Mark's in the room and has an interest in this. One thing that nRhythm and our team has not really prioritized is how this approach can be really applied to individuals' personal development and their own capacity building. We've really focused on the organization and the larger system. So I only bring this up to say that you, in your consulting and educating and training, may have an emphasis that's really unique and different than what nRhythm is doing. And we want to partner with you to be able to help bring those things out, because it's more than we can deliver in capacity. Now, we are challenged just like anybody else with how much time we have to be able to do the things we want to do. So as we are launching this program and this community, we are going to need help and support, and being able to identify what that may look like and how we could partner with you in these different contexts. But I just want to stress that that's the beauty of us building and continuing to lean into an ecosystem of unique individuals and teams that are doing this in other places where we can't be. But we can also recognize that that would be available across many different areas of interest. Could be you have a specific sector interest, or it could be that you focus on individuals, not organizations. And there just could be lots of things that you decide to focus on that would be a great resource to us and our community.
Thanks, Trey. Anybody else? Well, if there are no other questions, then we can gift you all back 8 minutes. I put a link to the program in the chat. Let me just grab it again so that it's easy for you all to access. We do have a program guide available for download on there. Encourage you to check it out. We'd be happy to have a one-on-one call with anyone who's interested. If you're unsure, if any questions come up after this for you, please reach out to team@nrhythm.co. We would be happy to meet with you to answer any questions you have, figure out if it's a good fit for you, or if you have any ideas, we're always open to that as well. And yeah, thank you all for your time. Really appreciate all the great questions, and thank you for being here today. And we'll see you soon. Be well. Thanks,
Thank
Natalie.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.